Hi there, my name is Benjamin. For the past 3 years I've had one particular goal, to see my abs and just look aesthetic. I honestly made so many bad decisions along the way and just wasted so much time. So yeah, let me explain to you how I was actually able to see my abs after 3 years of struggling. By far the biggest factor for losing weight is just how much you eat, like you are what you eat. And I, never really understood this. Like I knew the basics. If I needed to lose fat, I needed a caloric deficit, build muscle mass, build mass, have a caloric surplus. I knew the basics. But weirdly enough, I never actually applied it. Like I never actually tracked my calories, made sure I had the deficit or the caloric surplus. I was only thinking and obsessing about my workout split. Should I do push-pull legs, upper lower? Should I train 3 times a week, 6 times a week? I was overthinking about everything, but not the actual thing that's gonna allow me to see my abs. And even though like worrying about my workout split is like a productive thing, it did not make me like see my abs any faster. Like I did not see any form of progress in fat loss, because of course like training your abs, like hypertrophy, training them to failure like you would any muscle, is going to be productive. They're going to show up better, they'll be more symmetrical, and they'll just look like overall nicer. But as long as you have like a layer of fat covering your abs, you can train them as much as you want, they will just simply not show up. So obviously the answer to seeing my abs was to have a caloric deficit. And the best way I was able to actually get my caloric deficit is through a low-carb diet. And I know it can be very hard to build your aesthetic physique, lose fat, or even build muscle mass. So if you want my help to get there way faster, to achieve your goals without any frustration, waste of time, just check out the link in the description right now. I'll teach you everything that has allowed me to actually build my aesthetic physique, go from being overweight and anxious to muscular and aesthetic, and seeing my abs in only 3 years of going to the gym. So yeah, if you're interested, just check out the link in the description right now. So why I'm pushing this idea of like having a low-carb diet to having a caloric deficit, it's just because it's so much simpler to have your deficit if you don't have any carbs in your diet. Because to be honest, I've tried having deficits with like a regular diet, a Western diet, eating carbs, fats and proteins, but when I tried with absolutely no carbs, it was so much easier to actually achieve my calorie goal without having any like frustration or like thinking about cravings. I was just pure focused on my caloric deficit. If anything, I wasn't even noticing I was in a caloric deficit just because of the power of the low carb diet. So how come is the low carb diet so powerful for having a caloric deficit? Well, the thing is, like when you're eating carbs, your insulin level spikes, and when your insulin is high, it's gonna be disrupting over 100 systems in your body. But in terms of fat loss, there's only like a few of those 100 things that actually matters, and especially your hormone production. So basically like your leptin, the hormone that makes you feel like satiated, or your ghrelin, the hormone that makes you feel hungry. Like if you're eating carbs and your insulin rises, it's gonna be disrupting their production. So of course, sometimes you're gonna be feeling hungry when you're actually not, or sometimes when you're at the dinner table eating, you're gonna feel like you want more, even though if you hadn't had that disruption, you would have felt fine. So you see how like just by leptin and ghrelin, it makes it way harder for you to have your caloric deficit, because you'll be way more hungrier more often, and it's just like way harder and more like sluggish to achieve your caloric goal. And the same goes for like sleep. If you eat carbs, your insulin's high, you'll have like a worse production of melatonin, so you'll sleep worse. And sleep is one of the most powerful things for actually losing fat and burning fat. So like that's just like a drop in the ocean of all the things that come from like eating carbs and like disrupts like your fat loss. And on top of like not having any insulin spikes, you'll be what's called fat adapted. So eventually, like after a couple of weeks, once your body understands like it's not running on carbs anymore since you're not eating any, it's gonna kind of have like a metabolic switch, where basically instead of using your carbs for energy, it's gonna be using like your fat you already have stored for energy. So on top of having that caloric deficit, or you're just naturally losing weight, you're gonna be using the fat you already have as kind of like combustion to actually create energy. So you're losing fat like 2 in 1, like you're losing fat twice as fast. Because let's say we want to lose like a kilogram of pure fat, and a kilogram of fat is the equivalent of 7,700 calories. So if we had like a 500 caloric deficit, it would take us about like 2.5 weeks to actually lose that amount of fat, have that 7,700 caloric deficit, and just be able to like look way better. But if on top of the deficit you have the fat adaptation, you're going to be able to lose that like kilogram of fat in nearly half of the time, just because for every day you're doing that low carb diet, your body's literally using the fat you already have to create extra energy. So like that's honestly why, in my opinion, I was able to actually lose fat for the first time in my life, have no cravings because I have better control over my hunger, but I also saw like way faster results, just because like I'm literally losing fat at twice the pace I would if I just had the same amount of deficit but with like a regular diet. And if you're anything like me, you don't just want to be lean, you don't just want to be like a twig with abs, you want to be aesthetic, have muscle mass and be lean, just have that attractive look. So of course we still want to be going to the gym and training as hard as we would if we were like on a bulk or like on a caloric maintenance. Just train as hard as you usually do, go to muscular muscular failure, train your muscles twice a week, like go hard, and of course train your abs. Like there's no secret, training a muscle helps it to like show up more. Like your abs are like any other muscle, like training them will make them show up more. So still train your abs to muscular failure with weights, with intensity like you would any muscle. Train them twice a week, and I promise you, if you follow everything I just said, you'll see your abs in no time. And yeah, that's pretty much everything I did to actually see my abs. I know it's not hard, it sounds obvious, but honestly it took me 3 years to understand everything I just said. I went through so many phases thinking that calorie was a calorie, trying like low carb, high carb. I was trying to like YOLO my caloric deficit without tracking my calories, thinking I was eating less. So like just making rational choices, like trying to eat less just by visual like appearances, and I never actually saw results. The only time I was able to is when I had a low carb diet, tracked my calories, trained hard at the gym, and I finally built my dream aesthetic body. I honestly hope this videos helped you, and yet again, if you want my help to get there way faster without wasting time, you don't want any frustration trying an hour, just check out the link in the description right now. I'll help you achieve your dream body as fast as possible, so you don't have to waste time. You can just get there way faster than anyone else. So yeah, if you're interested, just check out the link in the description right now. Goodbye.